I am the cat cherished by Huiqianan. Due to Bai Yueguang's allergy to cat fur, he forbids me from reverting to my original form. It had been quite a while since I last groomed myself, and just as I was about to indulge in a clandestine lick, Bai Yueguang unexpectedly arrived at his home. Huiqianan, with an air of indifference, grasped me by the scruff of my neck and unceremoniously tossed me outside, declaring, "I have no idea where this stray cat came from, but I shall dispose of it." That day, the rain poured heavily, soaking my freshly groomed fur, which was now muddied and drenched. I sat in the rain, at a loss as to where I might wander. Such a pitiful sight, little kitty. Why not return home with me? Days later, as I savored a delectable piece of salmon in my new abode, I overheard that Huishao had gone to great lengths in search of a cat. One that please refrain from transforming back into a cat for the time being. Your shedding has become rather excessive. Huiqianan removed his suit jacket and tossed it into the trash without a second thought. As I was in the midst of grooming, I awkwardly lowered my raised paw. Glancing at my fur, I noticed it had become somewhat matted due to neglect. Huiqianan had changed. In the past, upon returning home, he would embrace me, groom my fur, and notice when my claws had grown long, promptly trimming them for me. Now, however, after settling onto the sofa, his gaze remained fixated on his phone, a fleeting smile occasionally gracing his lips, his joy seemingly derived from anything but my presence. Yet, when I leapt onto his side, he would immediately dim his screen, and the sweet, inviting scent surrounding him would quickly turn bitter. Didn't I instruct you to remain human? I have a business partner who is allergic to cat fur. I raised my paw, hoping to show him my long, untrimmed claws. It had been ages since he last clipped them. Hwumi, you can transform into a human, yet you still expect me to assist you with your claws? Isn't that a tad lazy? It's time to integrate into human society. Suddenly, his phone rang. After glancing at the caller ID, he rose to take the call in another room. I stared at his retreating figure, disappointment etched across my face, my tail drooping in dejection. 3 years ago, he had rescued me when I was injured, tending to me with utmost care. He would even carry me in a cat carrier when we ventured outside. Gently, he would stroke my head, saying, "What other kittens possess? Our Mimi has too. What other kittens lack? Our Mimi still has." I was deeply touched, and in return, I exhibited a level of obedience unparalleled by any other cat. Everyone envied him for having such an extraordinary feline companion. Later, he found himself inebriated one evening, resulting in a minor car accident. Upon returning home, he was covered in blood, reeking of alcohol. What a pitiful sight, a man in such a wretched state. I had only just assumed human form, yet I helped him wipe his face, assisted him to bed, and retrieved iodine to tend to his wounds. I even prepared a bowl of congee for him. When Huiqianan awoke from his drunken stupor and beheld me, his expression was one of shock and bewilderment. I held the bowl of congee and said to him, "This was painstakingly made for you, by Tianluo." But why, I ponder, had he grown so distant? The litter box had been cleared away, the cat tree dismantled, and even the scratching post had vanished. What should I do next? Should I part with my beloved feline companion? Hwumi, my partner is currently in a predicament, and I must go fetch her. You should find somewhere else to sleep for the night. I gazed at him in silence, not uttering a word. Yet Huiqianan had already lost patience with my silent treatment. Hwumi, be obedient. I still need to clean up your stray fur. I descended from the sofa and walked out without looking back, watching as Huiqianan dialed a number to summon a cleaning crew, effectively renovating the entire apartment. Shortly thereafter, he returned, his arm around a woman. I recognized her from photographs. Su, Huiqianan's elusive white moonlight. Her complexion was flushed, her senses dulled. One hand draped around Huiqianan's neck, her body swaying in his embrace. But soon, she began to sneeze uncontrollably. "Qianan, do you have a cat?" she asked, sniffling and tearful. Huiqianan steadied her, his gaze scanning the surroundings, and suddenly it locked onto me, huddled in a hidden corner. I hadn't intended to return. I merely sought refuge from the rain and the fierce winds outside. The neighborhood offered no other shelter for the night. After a brief excursion, I had been chased back by the property management and security who had approached me with a large net. I had hurried back home. I perched in a corner, striving to curl into a tight ball, my head drooping. In the next instant, Huiqianan seized me by the scruff of my neck, lifting me up. "Oh dear. How could there be a cat?" Su exclaimed, her voice rising as she covered her mouth, alternating between sneezing and coughing. "It must be a stray that wandered into the neighborhood. I'll just toss it out." Huiqianan flung me through the doorway. coincidentally encountering the property management team at the entrance. What is wrong with your management? Allowing stray cats to roam in. It must be someone's cat that has escaped. We apologize for the inconvenience, they replied. This one is filthy and its claws are unkempt. How could it not be a stray? Just then, I was thrown into a puddle, mud splattering my fur as I sat there in a daze. Throughout the ordeal, Huiqianan had not cast a single glance in my direction. Once a cherished pet, I was now reduced to a stray. My hind leg ached, yet I pressed on, leaping into the greenery and running aimlessly in the rain. It wasn't until the sharp pain in my leg became unbearable that I halted, only to discover a shard of glass embedded in my hind leg, blood streaming forth. As darkness fell and the rain intensified, I limped along, allowing the rain to drench me, uncertain where to wander next. I had once roamed freely, but now I simply resided temporarily in a human home for 3 years. However, as I hung my head low, I suddenly sensed an obstruction in my path and came to a halt. The rain seemed to be shielded by something, and I caught sight of a pair of black leather shoes. Looking up, I saw a man in a suit, holding an umbrella, standing in the middle of the road like a lunatic. In the next moment, he scooped me up. His fox-like eyes narrowed slightly, and that handsome face was familiar to me. He was Huiqianan's arch-rival, Chun-Li. Do you know the flower language of stray cats? He asked, gently stroking my damp head. Come home with me, you little wretched creature. For humans are fickle, capricious beings. I refused to repeat past mistakes. Thus, I meowed fiercely at him, unleashing a torrent of profanities. In my struggle to escape his grasp, I only intensified my injuries, the blood flowing from my hind leg. My attempts were futile, merely exhausting me further. My claws dug into his shirt, piercing through the fabric and into his skin, yet he resolutely refused to release me. A formidable opponent. A little kitten stood no chance. The rain fell more heavily, the sound roaring across the land, yet as the door closed, it filtered out the cacophony. My wet fur clung to my body, and even the slightest breeze made me shiver. Chun-Li fared no better. My claws had left marks on his left side, while the right bore a trail of shredded fabric. He was soaked through, and in some places his shirt was stained with blood from my scratches. I lowered my head and let out a soft mewl. I was sorry. He had borne the brunt of my misplaced anger, though humans are known for their capriciousness. I suddenly recalled our previous encounters when I saw him at the charitable cat house, where he had replenished food and cleaned the litter boxes more than once. Perhaps he simply saw a little cat caught in the rain and acted out of kindness. Just as my thoughts wandered, I found myself enveloped in a large, soft towel, avoiding my injuries as Chun-Li dried my fur. This may hurt a little. Bear with it, he said. He grasped my hind leg, and though the sensation was uncomfortable and I wanted to kick, I understood he was helping me tend to my wounds. When he removed the glass shard from my leg, I could tolerate it. But the moment a cotton ball soaked in iodine touched my wound, I could no longer contain myself. My front paws instinctively spread apart, revealing my sharp claws, yet I couldn't move freely. All I could do was howl loudly. Meow. Meow 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 meow. Damn, Huiqianan. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be in this predicament. If he wished to abandon me, he should have said so outright, rather than causing heartache for a little kitten. Just wait until I recover. All right, Jengli repeatedly soothed me. Yet I continued to meow and protest, feeling both indignant and aggrieved, completely unaware that he had carried me into the most intimate of human spaces, his bedroom. 5. Chun-Li set me down on a soft carpet and, right before my eyes, began to remove his drenched clothing. Right there, in front of me, my round little eyes widened in astonishment. Huiqianan had always disallowed me from entering his bedroom, and even in human form, I had only ever entered to care for him when he was intoxicated. Never had I witnessed him change clothes before me. At most, he would loosen his tie and unbutton a couple of buttons. But Chun-Li treated me as if I were merely a cat, swiftly shedding his garments. His physique was robust, the marks I had scratched upon his chest adding to his wild allure. His broad back and well-defined abs were a testament to his strength, every muscle taut and powerful. Indeed, appreciating beauty is the finest remedy to dispel sorrow. Chun-Li picked up a cotton ball, bowing his head to treat his wounds. I limped over to his side, raising my head to closely inspect his injuries. Do you realize how sharp your claws are? I lowered my head, noticing my long overdue untrimmed claws, and a wave of regret washed over me. In resignation, I lay down, tucking my paws close to my chest. After transforming into human form, I noticed that my nails had grown rather long, yet I refrained from trimming them myself. What cat, possessing an owner, would dare to cut their own nails without their beloved master coaxing and pleading? Thus, I allowed them to grow, observing as they became increasingly elongated and my fur more disheveled. Chun-Li changed into a fresh set of pajamas and returned to my side, squatting down to gently rub my head before offering me a piece of delectable fish jerky. The aroma of the fish was irresistible. Lost in my sorrow, I munched away. Suddenly, I found myself being lifted. With remarkable speed, he clipped my nails. My movements halted, and I looked up at him. Chun-Li met my gaze for a fleeting moment, and in that brief interval of him nodding at me, he swiftly trimmed the nails on my other paw as well. Such a good kitty. Truly the best little cat, he praised as he continued to clip my back paws. Sitting upon the blanket, I watched him diligently attending to my nails and let out a soft meow. "What's the matter?" he asked. I meowed again, feeling a bittersweet pang in my heart, compelled to emit meaningless meows. "Did I hurt you? I'll be gentler." Once he finished trimming my nails, he even fetched a small comb to groom my fur. It had been so long since I experienced the sensation of being cradled in someone's hands. As Chun-Li settled into bed, the hour had grown late. The rain showed no signs of abating. Even with all the windows shut, the howling wind could still be heard. Having transformed from a cat into a human, the medical bandages on my hind legs had torn apart due to my increased size. Gazing at the man lying on the bed, I ran to the window without a moment's hesitation, twisting the handle to prepare for my escape. Raindrops, carried by the wind, splattered against my face. He was a good person, but I refused to repeat past mistakes. Just as I was about to leave, my keen ears detected a change in Chun-Li's breathing. It suddenly became heavy and rapid. Was he feverish? I recalled an old cat I once met while wandering, who resided in a pet clinic. They mentioned that humans could be quite fragile. Getting caught in the rain could lead to colds and fevers, and if we cats scratched them without prompt care, they too could fall ill, becoming mere babbling fools. He had been caught in the rain today, and had also been injured by my claws. What a double misfortune. As a cat with a flicker of conscience, I could not allow him to become a fool. Therefore, I closed the window and approached the bed. The closer I got, the more I could hear his labored breathing. I reached out to touch his forehead. The heat radiating from him was enough to scald a cat's paw. He was indeed feverish. Chun-Li's hoarse voice mumbled indistinctly, "Water." Instinctively, I dashed to the bedroom where the water jug was kept and poured him a glass of warm water. I initially intended to rouse him, but suddenly recalled how Qian and had treated me kindly before he discovered I could transform into a human. After that revelation, his demeanor had fluctuated, becoming unstable. Although Chun-Li had brought me home, tended to my fur, trimmed my nails, and applied medicine, we were still strangers. Although you are a good person, I still intend to leave. I placed the water on the bedside table, resolved to utilize our feline skills as a token of gratitude for his life-saving assistance. As a cat, my saliva possessed the ability to accelerate the healing of wounds once I transformed into a human. I unfastened the buttons of Chun-Li's pajamas, revealing his robust chest, upon which lay a wound that had already been treated. Taking a deep breath, I began to lick the area. What sort of ointment was this? It tasted terribly bitter. Spitting and licking, where I couldn't reach, I simply sat upon him, diligently and earnestly attending to the task. Midway through, I noticed that Chun-Li's breathing had intensified. His body felt even hotter, and there was something poking me insistently. I felt a surge of panic. What was happening? Why was there such a negative response? I refrained from reverting to my original form to avoid shedding fur onto the wound, which could lead to a secondary infection. However, the more I licked, the higher his temperature soared, to the point where my little cat tongue felt like it might scorch. The water I had intended for him now filled my own belly. Yet, the results were apparent. At least half of the wound was healing at an astonishing rate. With renewed determination, I pressed on. Just as I was about to continue, my head was suddenly pressed down by a firm hand. I found my face crushed against his chest. I struggled desperately, but to no avail. Chun-Li had suddenly flipped over, pinning me beneath him. He appeared to be in a daze, one hand holding me down while the other caressed my face. "Did you come back to my dreams again? Meow?" At Chun-Li's words, I voiced my confusion. He held me tightly, making it almost impossible to breathe. But I was no ordinary cat. Just as I prepared to unleash a flurry of feline punches, my hands were lifted above my head and pinned down, my legs secured firmly. I immediately wished to transform into a live cat, to escape from this predicament. But I strained, and then strained again. Oh no, I couldn't revert back. Not only that, but I also felt as though I might perish. Woe is me! He held me in one arm, and I was unable to break free. Was I destined to become the first cat to be smothered by a human? Just as I thought I was truly going to die. Cheng-Li finally allowed me to breathe, though his relaxation was limited to just that. It seemed he had drifted off to sleep again, trapping me like a captured criminal. I attempted to withdraw my hand, only to discover that every time I moved, his grip tightened further. Some people, even in slumber, possess the ability to control others. Failing to transform back into a cat and unable to withdraw my hand, I could only lie there, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. Listening to the rain pattering outside, my mind wandered from one thought to another. I still did not know if Cheng-Li would awaken tomorrow and be startled awake. His body temperature seemed to have decreased, now resting at a comfortable warmth. Rather than overthink, it might be best to get some rest. I assumed I would struggle to sleep, as this was the first time in 3 years that I had left Huiqian's villa, the home I had resided in for 3 years. I thought I would not miss Huiqian, and despite his inconsistent treatment, he was hardly a good owner. Not long ago, he had wished for me to stay with him forever, only to suddenly change his mind. Yet, somehow, I felt a hint of longing. Although I pondered, it did not hinder my ability to sleep soundly in Cheng-Li's embrace. In my dreams, a swarm of fish jerky surged towards me, and I eagerly grasped one. Munching away, savoring the flavors. After the excitement subsided, I still adored fish jerky the most. But as I gnawed, I realized this jerky was exceedingly tough, impossible to chew. How intriguing! It had been ages since I had encountered such resilient fish jerky. Thus, I summoned all my strength, ready to bite down when suddenly, my mouth was restrained by a powerful grip. If you bite down, you'll tear the flesh from my chest. I heard someone whisper in my ear, their breath tickling my ear. I pawed at my ear, but the fish jerky vanished. My beloved fish jerky. Before I could open my eyes, I had already begun to scold, Huiqian, what are you doing? I distinctly felt the other person shudder. When I finally opened my eyes, I realized it was not Huiqian but Cheng-Li. Just yesterday, Huiqian had cast me out for his beloved, and the property management had chased me with a net, only for Cheng-Li to bring me back home. A hint of disappointment flickered in my eyes. I apologize for disappointing you. Would you like me to return you? Cheng-Li bestowed upon me a faint smile and inquired, is it not so? How could he remain so composed and unfazed? The sudden appearance of a beautiful girl in his bed would surely be a rather alarming occurrence, would it not? I gazed at him, blinking in astonishment. You seem remarkably unperturbed. Could it be that this is not your first experience? Cheng-Li raised an eyebrow in curiosity. What do you mean? Well, I mean that you must frequently wake up to find a lovely girl beside you, which is why you are so calm, I exclaimed. To my surprise, the typically diligent human who tended to the cats and replenished their supplies exhibited such a demeanor in private. I feigned disgust, sitting up slightly to create some distance. I am not. I replied dismissively, inching away further. I heard Huiqian mention something to someone. As soon as those words left my mouth, my movements froze. Huiqian has been sharing tales of me? What if he were to capture me for some sort of study? I had thought that after all the good deeds I had done, I had finally touched the heart of the feline deity who rewarded me with a fairy-like cat. But it seems the devotees of the cat deity have not been granted such a favor. I sensed an air of disappointment emanating from Cheng-Li and bit my lip. Do not be disheartened. There will be cats in the future. After all, having helped groom the cats and trim their nails with such finesse yesterday, what need would a capable caretaker have to worry about not having a cat? Even if Huiqian treats you poorly, forsaking the feline, would you still seek him out? I intend to return, but it will be for the purpose of revenge. And how do you plan to exact your revenge? I pondered for a moment, hands on my hips, and declared fiercely, by ruining his sofa and charging cables, by urinating on his bed, and by wiping my behind on his pillow. Upon hearing this, Cheng-Li shook his head. Such acts of vengeance would be inconsequential to a human. He has servants, so he would merely move to another room and purchase new items. Just as I was about to suggest returning, Cheng-Li seemed to read my mind and added, if you were to return, they might very well have the property management waiting for you at home. The mention of property management conjured memories of the large net from last night. Being captured would indeed be quite terrifying. If I were to transform into a human in front of so many, I would undoubtedly be taken for research. So, do you have any good ideas? After all, he was the sworn enemy of Huiqian. Huiqian often claimed that one's greatest understanding comes from their adversary. Perhaps he might offer me some valuable advice. If you wish to follow our human way of revenge, it would be to live better than he does. Demonstrating that without him, you are far happier. Upon hearing a suggestion, I nodded thoughtfully. Then I shall strive to hunt every day to be self-sufficient. I will show Huiqian that even without his little fish treats, freeze-dried snacks, and cat food, I can thrive. Cheng-Li chuckled softly, leaning slightly toward me. However, from a human perspective, if he were to witness this, he would only perceive you as suffering without him. Really? Is the human mind so peculiar?
Then what do you suggest?
Nothing seems to work. How about I become your new caretaker? My family background and status surpass that of Huiqian. Even if he sees you, he would have no grounds to mock you. But what if you, like Huiqian, forget about the cat in favor of beauty? Some cats aspire to conquer the world, while others prefer a life of sameness. However, environments may remain unchanged, but people can be fickle. At that moment, Cheng-Li sighed. I have a secret I wish to share with you. A secret? My ears perked up, intrigued by the prospect of gossip. I fixed my gaze eagerly upon him, awaiting the revelation. In the past, I suffered an accident that dulled my perception of joy, anger, sorrow, and happiness to an alarming degree, nearly extinguishing it entirely. I consulted numerous doctors, yet they could offer no remedy, only advising me to relax and seek out anything that could evoke even the faintest sense of feeling. Thus, for many years, I have existed as a cold, emotionless machine, concealing my true self from others, perpetually feigning smiles and pretending to be a normal person. It sounded so tragic. I had never sensed this aspect of him during our interactions. His facade must have required great effort, and he must have endured considerable hardship. I reached out to pat his arm, attempting to offer comfort. I have made many attempts, and only once, while feeding the cats, did I glimpse a cat that resembled a fairy from a distance. Regrettably, she had an owner. I sought to grasp that fleeting sensation, so I often returned to observe her. However, her owner was quite cruel, inciting within me a feeling known as anger. Thus, that fairy-like cat may very well be my salvation. As Cheng-Li concluded, I realized that he was speaking of me. A wave of embarrassment washed over me, and I scratched my head bashfully. I cannot be as you describe. Yet if I can assist you, I would be delighted. Suddenly, he enveloped me in a warm embrace.
Thank you.
Indeed, this world cannot do without cats.
Oh my.
He was quite articulate. I struggled to suppress the smile that threatened to break free. After I promised him my support, I could almost feel the joy radiating from Cheng-Li. He rested his chin on his paw, deep in thought. Could it be that I possessed the ability to save others too? In the following days, Cheng-Li even skipped work. He arranged for a top-notch grooming specialist to come to my aid, ensuring I looked my finest. He stood expressionless beside the groomer, his face quite formidable when devoid of a smile. The groomer's hands trembled slightly as they wielded the scissors. Meow. I called out to him, my round eyes wide, urging him to ease his demeanor. What if he caused the groomer to falter and inadvertently cut me? Cheng-Li remained silent, merely retrieving his phone to capture a series of photos of me. The groomer seemed to relax considerably upon witnessing this, letting out a long sigh of relief, murmuring softly, "Not even a billion-dollar CEO can resist the charm of a cat." The groomer's skill was remarkable. In no time, my previously disheveled fur was transformed into a pristine coat, a complete metamorphosis. However, I still harbored some reluctance toward bathing. The groomer, noticing Cheng-Li standing at the bathroom door, mustered the courage to ask, "Mr. Chung, would you like to come in and learn some bathing techniques? Next time, you might consider bathing the cat yourself. It would help strengthen your bond." What? Allow Cheng-Li to bathe me? Absolutely not. I meowed and shook my head vigorously. Yet, to the groomer, it appeared as though I was merely joyously shaking off water, even misinterpreting my meaning.
See?
The little cat is eager for you to join her. I never said that. What a misunderstanding.
Thankfully, Cheng-Li declined.
No need, you can manage that.
Girls can be shy.
After he said this, he exited the bathroom. Once the groomer finished fluffing my fur, they packed up and departed. Cheng-Li then presented me with numerous beautiful little dresses. These dresses are versatile. They can be worn as a cat and later as a human. Upon seeing those exquisite dresses, my eyes widened in delight. What girl does not adore cute and beautiful clothing? I, too, was no exception. Yet, Huiqian had never prepared such things for me. Later, when I was to be transformed into a human, the dresses chosen for me were predominantly white, with the insistence that white is aesthetically pleasing. Aesthetically pleasing, indeed. Thus, Each time I underwent my metamorphosis, I transformed my fur into a dress, resolutely refusing to don white. Huiqian would invariably comment on how unflattering my calico fur dress appeared. How infuriating! The mere recollection ignites my ire. Does he not understand that calicos are the epitome of beauty in the feline realm? Why that expression? Are you displeased? My apologies, Chun-Li stated with unerring clarity. Not at all. I adore it. Thank you, I responded. In just a few days, you've managed to gather so many lovely dresses. You must have expended considerable effort. I leaped into his embrace, pointing at a lovely, gradient yellow cat dress, exclaiming, "Help me wear it." Raising my gaze, I caught sight of Chun-Li's Adam's apple bobbing, a flicker of heat igniting in his eyes, yet his hands remained unmoved. Just as I was wrestling with the notion of transforming back into human form to dress myself, I heard him utter a single word with difficulty. All right. Dressed in the delightful little dress, I dashed to the second floor, to Chun-Li's bedroom. His closet boasted a floor-to-ceiling mirror. I twirled in front of the mirror, joyfully meowing. It had been ages since I felt such happiness. When Huiqian first rescued me, I was injured and unable to assume my human form. The dangers of wandering outside were immense. He provided a nurturing environment for my recovery and, naturally, he did not begrudge his kindness towards me. Eventually, he declared his intention to care for me, showering me with sweet words. He bought me a cozy cat bed and toys. Although he did not play with me, I understood the toil he endured to earn a living. The mere thought of Huiqian stirred a bittersweet pang in my heart. Lowering my head before the mirror, even my whiskers conveyed a semblance of dejection. What troubles you? Chun-Li's warm hand rested atop my head, soothingly stroking me. Even clad in a beautiful dress, with well-groomed fur and nails, my mind still lingers on Huiqian. Chun-Li gently patted me. It's perfectly normal. Everyone harbors nostalgia. In time, you will forget. But it's unreasonable to expect one's emotions to be tidied away in mere days, to begin anew. I nodded in agreement. So, could you take me back? Before I could finish my thought, I detected an air of despondency wafting through the atmosphere. I hastily continued. I still wish to frolic about on his pillow after using the litter box, and nibble on the sofa, even if it might ruin my teeth. Though Chun-Li's countenance remained unchanged, the aura he radiated gradually shifted from bitterness to sweetness. By the way, I sensed a fluctuation in your emotions just now. Is it better? Indeed, when you mentioned leaving, I felt the shift distinctly, yet it seemed less like improvement and more like it was triggered by you. I pondered this, scratching my ear thoughtfully. Please take me over first. Upon my return, we can explore this further. After all, I was beginning to feel rather restless. Chun-Li drove me to a spot near Huiqian's villa and parked, awaiting my return. He initially intended to drive a bit closer, but I stopped him. This venture was undoubtedly mischievous, and should Huiqian catch wind of his proximity, it could lead to complications. I leapt into the lawn, confirming the area was deserted before deftly opening the door. Upon entering Huiqian's room, I discovered a woman's nightgown carelessly tossed on the bed. Evidently, my absence over the past few days had not stirred a trace of concern in him. He was, in fact, blissfully cuddling a woman as he slept. Humph, no matter. I had also enjoyed the embrace of a handsome fellow these past few days. However, as I exited the Hor residence and hopped back into the car, I found myself devoid of the anticipated joy, instead slumping disheartenedly in the passenger seat. When Chun-Li lifted me once more, the fur around my eyes was dampened by tears. Wah! You have no idea how outrageous it is. He cast me into a puddle and has been sleeping with a woman these past few days. Not once did he think to look for me. He initially claimed he would care for me, yet as soon as his beloved returned, I was discarded. Humans are truly despicable creatures. It was I who saved him when he was drunkenly on the verge of drowning in the toilet. I made him kanji, wiped his face, and patiently awaited his return home each day. How could a human so callously betray the affections of a cat? I vented my frustrations in human tongue for quite a while, still unsatisfied, before unleashing a flurry of meows. What a failure! My feline existence is a dismal failure. If other cats discovered that I had licked a human like a dog, only to be so mercilessly cast aside like refuse, I might as well have perished. I apologize for making you witness such folly, I said, rubbing my eyes with my paw, gazing at Chun-Li, who had been soothing me throughout. A cat never needs to apologize. I shall do better than he ever did. I straightened up from his embrace, extending my body, my feline head brushing against his chin. Thank you for comforting me. Chun-Li paused, then bestowed upon me a smile. May I ask you for a favor? I nodded eagerly, of course. Would you mind donning a human dress again and kissing me once more?
Huh.
Do not misunderstand. When you kiss me, I seem to sense emotional fluctuations. But I cannot simply press a kitten to confirm this matter, can I? If we were to be caught, it would become tomorrow a scandal. And I would be branded a pervert for all to know.
Oh.
Then wait for me a moment. I leapt from his arms and dashed back to change. Chung-Li had instructed the housekeeper to clear a space in his closet, where all my various dresses were neatly hung. This time, I selected an orange lace princess dress adorned with colorful pom-poms. Once dressed, I twirled before the mirror, unable to resist playing with the pom-poms for a while before remembering to descend. Chung-Li lounged on the sofa, one arm casually draped over his leg, his long, elegant fingers tapping a rhythmic beat, exuding an aura of languidness. When he lifted his gaze and met mine as I descended the staircase, he remarked, "You look stunning." Chung-Li never hesitated to shower me with compliments.
Thank you.
I stood there awkwardly, my eyes fixed on him. Surely, he would not expect me to initiate the kiss again? Chung-Li seemed to grasp the intent in my gaze, rising from the sofa. He towered over me, leaning down with a commanding presence, causing my heart to race. His tongue playfully danced about, instantly reminding me of the past. Qian had also engaged in such antics, albeit rather roughly. I retaliated with a flurry of playful swats. This time, it felt delightful. At least I was not repulsed. And I was aiding Chung-Li in discovering his feelings. However, being pressed into a corner by his tongue left me slightly vexed. In an instant, my competitive spirit ignited, and we exchanged playful banter back and forth. Eventually, we both collapsed onto the sofa, gasping for breath. I curled up against him, listening to the rapid beating of his heart. Chung-Li suddenly asked, "Are you averse to going outside?" I remained silent, merely gazing at him. "As it is my first time caring for a cat, I am uncertain of your preferences. Would you accompany me to the supermarket? We can select some salmon and see what can be made into dried fish." Clad in such finery, of course I wished to venture out. The thought of personally choosing salmon was utterly enticing. "Splendid. I'll drive over, and we can dine out as well?" I nodded eagerly. I can partake in human food too. Yet, my heart still yearned for dried fish. Chung-Li drove us to a restaurant for our meal first. The restaurant he chose is exquisite, tranquil, and elegant. Most importantly, it offers sashimi. Delicious. Chung-Li gently tucked my hair behind my ear, saying, "If it's not enough, I can order more." I shook my head while savoring my meal. Suddenly, I heard Su Li's indignant voice from outside the private room. "I can't believe there are feral cats in such a high-end neighborhood. They ruined my nightgown." "It's just a nightgown. You can buy more." Hearing Qian's voice filled me with dismay, and the sashimi before me suddenly lost its appeal. It wasn't until the voices faded away that Chung-Li asked, "Are you finished eating?" I nodded. "Shall we go for a stroll?" "Why not?" I refused to let those who brought me unhappiness rob me of my joy. Chung-Li drove to a large plaza nearby. However, my sensitive nose was overwhelmed by the chaotic scents, making me somewhat uncomfortable. It stung, and I felt an urge to sneeze. Just then, we passed a boutique, and he went inside to buy a mask for me, which made things much more bearable. Upon reaching the seafood section, he visibly brightened, eagerly looking around as if he were a cat that had fallen into a pile of fish. With one hand pushing the cart and the other holding mine, we wandered about, picking things up. Then, an unexpectedly dramatic moment occurred. Chung-Li and Qian's hands simultaneously landed on a piece of exquisite salmon. In that instant, I instinctively took a step back, as if half my body had hidden behind Chung-Li. Qian, now alone, smiled slightly and remarked, "I hear President Chung has not been to the office for several days. How leisurely of you to come here. My team is quite capable. A few days away won't bring the company to its knees, so there's no need for you to worry, President Hua." The moment Qian released his grip, Chung-Li decisively placed the salmon into his cart. "Since President Chung has already gathered so much fish, how about letting me have this piece?" My little cat has been quite temperamental lately. Standing behind Chung-Li, I overheard his words, lowering my gaze and unable to suppress my inner sarcasm. "I'm right in front of you, yet you cannot recognize me. And your little cat. I'm sorry, but this salmon looks splendid. Our cat Ning is bound to adore it." Chung-Li suddenly called my name, causing me to lift my previously bowed head. It had been a long time since I had heard that name. How did Chung-Li know it? When I first arrived at Qian's home, he used to call me Mimi, back when I could not transform into a human. So when I finally did, I was overjoyed to share my name with him. However, he retorted, "I'm the one raising you now. Whatever name I choose for you, is the name you shall have. While there is some truth to that, a name is an invaluable gift for a little cat. You could always give me a more pleasant or unique name. After all, 9 out of 10 cats are named Mimi. Yet Huiqian seemed quite impatient with my request. Then shall I call you Humi from now on? At that moment, I did not fully comprehend. When I was a cat, he behaved quite normally, grooming me and trimming my claws. Why, once I transformed into a human, did everything seem to change? I merely sighed then, quietly storing that name in my heart. It was only later that I realized my human form bore a resemblance to Su Li. This is why Huiqian was so inconsistent, both restrained and distant, yet also deeply captivated. At the mention of that name, Huiqian appeared momentarily taken aback. Cheng Li, however, had no intention of waiting for him to regain his composure. He took my hand and quickened our pace, heading straight to the cash register. I kept pace with Cheng Li until we had walked a considerable distance, before finally voicing my question. Why do you call me Cat Ning? My name is clearly.
Do you still wish to be called that?
His sudden counter-question left me speechless. Indeed, should I still be called Humi? A cat that tiptoes anxiously each day, unsure whether Huiqian will present a cold face or a smile. A cat striving to please, only to lose its cozy nest, climbing frame, and even its territory. I shook my head. A name is a vessel of memory. If changing it signifies the beginning of a new life, then I shall accept the name you provide. How fortuitous. The new name he chose is quite similar to my original one. It is not a new name. It is your true name, Cheng Li replied, seemingly anxious. Just forget it. Let us go home. His mood shifted rapidly, and as someone already sensitive to emotions, I found his hesitance unsettling. Past experiences made me cautious, fearing Cheng Li might exhibit the same coldness as Huiqian. Cheng Li seemed to be adept at reading emotions. Having sensed my unease, he immediately reassured me. Let's return and enjoy some fish while I tell you a story, shall we? My wide-eyed tension gradually relaxed, though I still retained a hint of vigilance. After spending several hours outside, I realized it was indeed better to return. How peculiar. Though I had only stayed at Cheng Li's home for a few days, I felt remarkably comfortable. Cheng Li began slicing the piece of salmon he had snatched from Huiqian, while I leaned over the table, propping my chin on my hand, appearing to admire his deft knife skills, while I quietly observed for any sudden changes in his demeanor. Glancing at me, Cheng Li suddenly said while continuing to slice the fish, "Are you so eager? Then let me tell you the story from the beginning." Upon hearing this, my ears perked up. Excellent. I adore stories. Cheng Li began. There was a young boy. His parents, each with their own children, merely viewed him as a task completed. In high school, he was kidnapped, a glitch beginning. His parents showed no interest in their son, and the kidnappers, in their frustration, took all their anger out on the boy, leaving him battered and bruised. They even planned to cut off one of his fingers to instill fear in his parents. Just as the knife was about to descend, a calico cat descended from the heavens. The cat swatted the kidnappers away, showcasing astonishing prowess, forcing the two villains to flee in terror. "You are tied up like a dead fish," the calico cat remarked, cleaning its paws with its clothing, muttering to itself, "to be out here in the wilderness and still have humans ruin my plans, Cat Ning. It seems you're truly trapped in dire straits. Human, I helped you, so you must assist me in return." The calico cat gnawed at the boy's ropes, signaling for him to follow. The cat then led him to a secluded spot and earnestly advised, "You see, I can speak, which means I'm no ordinary cat. I must strive to become human, so no one must disturb me, and I cannot get blood on me, understood?"
Ah.
So it seems our little cat has encountered blood. The story is thus rich in comedy. What one fears most often comes to pass. I commented, having devoured most of the salmon slices he had prepared. Unable to contain my thoughts any longer, I voiced my opinion. Indeed. Cheng Li's gaze lowered, his voice heavy. The kidnappers found me before the police did. Fearing they would harm me, I chose to escape, but my injuries hindered my speed. When they mercilessly beat me, it was my blood that splattered onto one of them. Cheng Li recounted that the kidnappers harbored the intent to kill him, striking with great ferocity. He himself believed he was on the brink of death. Yet, after losing consciousness, he perceived a glimmer of light before him. Though I awoke in a hospital, I knew it was the calico cat that saved me. It relinquished its chance at adulthood to spare my life. It lost its memory and has been wandering with injuries ever since. Upon hearing this, any clever little cat would surely understand the implications. Am I truly so noble? Yet, indeed, I could not bear to witness a life extinguish before my very eyes. But how did you come to know this? if what he said was true? Who had informed him of my amnesia and my wandering with injuries? Chun-Li did not respond to this inquiry. However, I was a clever cat. I immediately grasped the crux of the matter.
So,
Is your inability to perceive emotions utilized to comprehend the entirety of events, or is it aimed at locating me? Have humans progressed to such a degree? Humans are indeed a fiercely competitive species. I speak candidly with you to convey that there is no need for caution in my presence. You may express yourself boldly, even if it means being pampered and willful. For you are the miraculous cat that descended from the heavens to save me. He actually sensed it? Wasn't he incapable of perceiving emotions? Can you truly not sense emotions? How then do you so precisely gauge my emotional shifts each time? Because I have navigated social situations this way all these years. He raised his hand to gently ruffle my head. Strangely, a wave of bittersweetness surged from deep within my heart. However, this sensation dissipated almost instantly as I recalled his admission of secretly observing me. So you're a voyeur, spying on me? I leaned closer, fixing my gaze on his eyes as I inquired. Tell me, did you always intend to whisk me away? Chun-Li seemed taken aback for a moment, emotions flitting across his eyes as if I had seen through him. Then a smile emerged, and he leaned closer, allowing me to discern the madness he had concealed for so long. Indeed, nothing escapes the keen insight of the esteemed feline.
So,
Might you gradually open your heart and attempt to accept your devout follower? I shall strive to do better. He slowly lifted my hand and pressed a fervent kiss upon its back. I felt an inexplicable warmth coursing through me, so intense that I wished to dance about, shaking off the heat. Observe how you behave. The warmth on my hand seemed to creep up my arm, quickly igniting my cheeks. I found myself burying my head in the remaining salmon, attempting to mask my current embarrassment. After finishing the salmon, I still felt an overwhelming warmth. Perhaps it was best to ascend and revert to my cat form. At least my fur would effectively conceal my current state. Chun-Li did not follow me into the room, which was a relief. I rolled about on the bed, gazing at the ceiling, lamenting how one could so carelessly kiss a little cat's paws. How annoying! Once my emotions settled completely, I noticed a multitude of stray fur on the blanket. A wave of dread washed over me, accompanied by the fear of being reprimanded once again. Once in human form, I scoured for a lint roller. Suddenly, in a fleeting moment, I remembered that I was no longer at the Hoare residence. Sitting back on the bed, it was difficult to articulate the sensation that enveloped me. I opened the door to discover Chun-Li in the study across the hall. He sat before his computer, and upon seeing me, the sound of his keyboard ceased abruptly. What is it? Do you have a lint roller? There's a lot of fur on the bed. I cast a glance at him, my eyes betraying my anxiousness as I looked away, unable to resist stealing another glance, apprehensive of his reaction. Yet, Chun-Li remained calm, merely stating, I have one prepared. I'll fetch it for you. I nodded, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. After obtaining the item, I expressed my gratitude and hurried back to address the fur. As I rolled away the tufts, my mind wandered. However, once I finished, a cat teaser suddenly appeared before me. The colorful feathers captivated my attention, and my hand itched to reach out. Instantly reverting to my feline form, I pounced upon the teaser. The joy of a little cat is indeed simple. I caught the feather, yet it slipped away, bouncing back for another attempt. After several rounds, I forgot all my troubles. Thank you for playing with me. Upon transforming back into human form, I rushed over to Chun-Li, planting a kiss on his cheek. He gently brushed my face with the back of his hand, saying, Cat Ning has cleaned up all the fur. Splendid work. This is a reward for Cat Ning. With that, he suddenly stood and kissed me again. His praise and affection left me momentarily flustered. Well, it's only right since I shed so much fur. Tidying up is to be expected. Yet that in itself is commendable. Which little cat in the world would clean up after itself? Only our Cat Ning. So, do not feel disheartened. You have done wonderfully. Could it be true? Before, Huiqianan said this was my duty. After all, I shed fur indiscriminately. There exists a behavior we humans refer to as desensitization. Your current actions are merely instinctual fear and compliance with the behaviors designated by Huiqianan. However, once new behaviors emerge and you repeat them, you will soon no longer feel apprehensive or fearful due to the old behavioral rules. Desensitization? In the future, when you see for shedding and use the lint roller, your mind should no longer be filled with panic, but rather thoughts of reward. Chun-Li's words brought me immense comfort, as if a heavy stone pressing upon my chest had suddenly been lifted. After Chung Li worked from home for quite some time, he finally prepared to go to the office. As he departed, he requested a kiss. I'll finish early today. I'll take you somewhere. He spoke with an air of mystery, brimming with anticipation. I nodded, waving him off as he exited. Once the door closed behind him, I found myself alone. Yet, during this time spent with Chung Li, I had begun to consider this place my new territory, no longer feeling a sense of rejection. Furthermore, it was merely a villa in the same complex, the homes being quite similar, differing only in decor. I transformed back into my feline form to explore my new domain, climbing on the installed cat tree before lounging in the transparent, rounded basin, gazing out the window. I admired the scenery as I gradually drifted into slumber. It felt as though I had returned to my initial days as a cat, free from the anxiety of tidying my fur. I no longer had to fret about the villa's owner being particularly fastidious about cleanliness, tirelessly ensuring the home remained spotless. After a refreshing nap, I picked up the phone Chung Li had prepared and joyfully scrolled through videos, laughing heartily. Hearing the sound of a car horn at the door, I perched at the window to see Chung Li's vehicle. Only then did I don my mask and head downstairs. The sun blazed brightly overhead. It was evident he had finished work early. Where could he be taking me, shrouded in mystery? To my surprise, the car stopped at the police station. Upon seeing the blue building, an inexplicable sense of unease washed over me. You're not planning to hand me over to the authorities, are you? I wondered. Was this miraculous cat truly only a means to keep me in check? There is something very significant in human society that I hope catning can also possess, which is why I brought you here.
What?
An identification card. Many animals, after evolving into human-like beings, require the recognition of humans, much like how a weasel seeks a title. However, as times progress, receiving the acknowledgement of the great blue power can be considered a form of human recognition as well. Chung Li took me to have my photograph taken, expedited the process, filled out forms, and paid the fees. After leaving, I still felt somewhat dazed. How did you think to bring me here for this? I asked. Because with it, a multitude of opportunities opens up, Chung Li replied, ruffling my hair and taking my hand. Come, let us go to the supermarket. Strolling through the supermarket while holding my hand was one of Chung Li's favorite activities. Although we had plenty of groceries delivered at home, he relished taking me shopping. He claimed it was one of the most enjoyable human activities and the best place to experience emotions. Consequently, he frequently pulled me out for a stroll. When encountering talkative strangers, Chung Li would coolly introduce me as his girlfriend, earning sincere compliments from the passersby, such as how well-matched we appeared. Even those who remained silent would convey their feelings through their expressions. Although I often thought to myself how pretentious he was during these moments, I couldn't deny that this place indeed radiated a rich emotional atmosphere. The day I received my identification card, I held it in my hands with great joy. Meticulously examining it, this was my proof of existence in human society. However, upon seeing the photograph, I couldn't help but frown. They made me look a bit ugly. Not at all. Even a random shot of our catning would look lovely, he reassured me. I pouted and handed him the card. Please keep it safe for me. After all, I always accompanied him when going out. If I needed it, I could just ask him. Just as we got out of the car and were about to head home, I suddenly heard a voice. How me? I heard it, but my steps only paused for a moment before continuing forward. The man behind me must not have expected my lack of response.
Aomi,
he called again, this time with anger, even striding toward me. You've grown wild. Haven to you? Do you have any idea how long I've been searching for you? In the past, I was particularly sensitive to the changes in Huiqian's tone, especially when he spoke in such a stern manner. It always felt as if my heart was gripped tightly, making it hard to breathe, my ears ringing as if in an airplane. However, now, aside from that initial racing heartbeat, I felt no further emotion. This must be what Chung Li referred to as desensitization.
I shook off his hand. Sorry.
You're not trying to say I've mistaken you for someone else, are you? How me? Don't put on such a pathetic act. Playing wild outside has made you forget where home is and who your master is. Although Huiqian looked somewhat disheveled, his tone remained aggressive, as if he were lamenting that even a superior like him was thus demeaned, and I didn't appreciate it. What I want to say is that you were the one who let me go, and even threw me into a puddle, saying I was just some stray cat. You had the gall to act tough in front of the girl, and now you have the audacity to claim you're looking for me. Twisting the narrative, distorting the facts, this is what Chung Li called it. You've only been gone for a short while and already picked up such bad habits? Sharp-tongued and full of venom. Only those who cannot gain the upper hand resort to malicious words to mask their own inadequacy, causing others to question themselves. Little kitty, you need not doubt yourself. It's you who harbors ill intentions. Watching Hui Qian's expression shift, his lips moving yet unsure of what to say, I finally released a great deal of pent-up frustration. The uneducated little cat could only express her current feelings in the most straightforward terms. Exhilarating. Cat Ning is truly wonderful. Upon hearing Qingli's praise, a smile immediately spread across my face. If it weren't for the difficulty of transforming my tail while wearing a skirt, I might have even wagged it. The car didn't proceed to the garage, but turned off in the courtyard. Qingli approached, likely intending to give me space to express myself. How me? If you're upset because of Su Li, I won't let her come around anymore. I've raised you for 3 years. Do you think 3 years of affection can't compare to you staying at someone else's house for a month? His words were infuriating, confirming with a glance. He exuded the sort of energy typical of a man who would demand back every penny spent after a breakup. How frustrating it was that I'd spent too much time as a human, unable to utter harsh words, only able to stomp my feet in place out of anger. So, irate. I wanted nothing more than to wipe my backside on his pillow. Sorry, Chung is not an outsider. We've picked a date and are going to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get our marriage certificate. Hui Qian laughed as if he had heard a joke, scoffing. Chun-Li, it's a pity I once regarded you as a rival, only for you to relinquish the position of Mrs. Chung just to compete with me for a cat? Have you lost your mind? Do you think that getting a certificate with a cat will undermine me? Chun-Li scrutinized him from head to toe. 3 years ago, when you inadvertently brought Cat Ning home, I once asked someone to come and retrieve her. At that time, your attitude was that you adored her, even carrying her in a cat bag to work, taking meticulous care of her, insisting that she have everything other cats have, refusing to concede any conditions unless she chose to leave. You claim to see me as a rival. You can't possibly be unaware that I have been searching for her all along. These 3 years, Chung Corporation has relinquished numerous benefits due to Cat Ning. You are well aware of that. Chong-Li stepped forward. Did you come today genuinely seeking the little cat, or is it because you've realized that starting this month, Chung Corporation will no longer yield? I see you've truly lost your mind. Do you think a corporation needs your charity and concessions? I've been able to compete with you these 3 years due to my own capabilities. Hui Qian's hysterical shouting made him resemble a monkey jumping around. If what Chun-Li said was true, then that was utterly despicable. If Mr. Hua is so capable, then let us settle this in the marketplace. Now leave my home. With that, Hui Qian's face turned a mixture of blue and white. His gaze fell upon me once more. How me? I will ask you one last time. Are you truly not going back? Don't let some sweet words from an outside man deceive you. Do you think he will genuinely marry you? Chung-S affairs are none of your business, but you, Hui Qian, are different. I was even more direct. Pulling out the identification card I had just received from Chung-Li's pocket, nearly thrusting it before his eyes, declaring loudly, "See clearly. My name is Cat Ning. Get lost. Since President Chung is so fond of my cat and refuses to return her, how about Chung Corporation withdraw from the West City project to offset the expenses of raising the cat for these 3 years? You're simply infuriating." I was so angry, I nearly charged at him to deliver a flurry of meows. But Chung-Li stopped me. Mr. Hua, with your constant references to the cat, might I inquire what evidence you have to prove that Chung has been raising your cat? The West City project is a matter of skill. If you're capable, report it to the authorities, provided you can prove that this cat is yours. Hui Qian merely threw out a parting remark. Just wait and see. He left immediately. As soon as he departed, Chung-Li focused on calming my emotions. We don't need to be angry with such a person. It's not worth it. Yet I kept my head down, feeling somewhat disheartened. Did you really go easy on him because of me? Chung-Li remained silent. How foolish. Why didn't you come to me and tell me? You saved my life. It's only right that I do something for you. Before Chung-Li could finish a sentence, I dashed into his embrace like a little cannonball, holding him tightly. Chung-Li is such a big fool. Chung-Li's hand gently patted my back repeatedly. Let's move. It's such bad luck to be in the same neighborhood as that kind of person. I no longer wished to see him. He had thrown me out. And now he expected me to settle 3 years' worth of expenses. What a disgrace. With someone like him, anyone with eyes wouldn't want to collaborate. My words, still clumsy, turned into a flurry of meows as I scolded him for quite some time. The truth was, the project in the west of the city had indeed been secured by Cheng's firm. During the partnership banquet, Chung-Li asked if I would accompany him as his date. He had never taken me to such a formal occasion before. I agreed. However, I did not expect Hui Qian to show up uninvited, bringing Su Li along. When Chung-Li and I arrived, he seemed to be deliberately nudging Su Li towards someone else. Yet, The man in the white suit clearly rejected her advances. Even with her carefully applied makeup, Su Li's discomfort was evident. Bullying a cat, bullying a girl, he truly was the scum of the earth. I charged forward, delivering a flurry of cat punches. Scoundrel. A girl is not a tool for you to climb the social ladder or barter for benefits. With a person like you, no one serious would ever want to collaborate. Even those who are unscrupulous would quickly go bankrupt in your company. What do you know about matters between men? You're just a cat that turned into a human. Hui Qianan scoffed openly in front of everyone, brimming with disdain. Mr. Hua is drunk and talking nonsense. Today is a partnership banquet between the Chung and Qin families. You'd better escort Mr. Hua out. The man in the white suit decisively intervened. No sooner had he spoken than two bodyguards in black appeared. Hui Qianan, realizing his plans had fallen through and being someone who valued his pride, straightened his suit and fixed his gaze on Su Li, coldly calling out, Su Li. I still held Su Li's hand and could distinctly feel her body shudder, as if frightened and wanting to retreat to Hui Qianan's side. You don't have to go over. You're a free person, not his little kitty.
Besides,
a little kitty would run away from such a manipulative scoundrel. Su Li glanced at me, tugged at her lips, and a flicker of light seemed to pass through her eyes. However, under Hui Qianan's urging, she returned to her numb state. For some reason, seeing Su Li like this reminded me of my own timid arrival at Cheng Li's home. Many details of life would resurface, turning me into a startled bird. A voice inside me insisted that I could not let Su Li go with him. Don't be afraid of him. If you don't want to go with him, you absolutely don't have to. It's just a scumbag. There's no need to invest your entire life into him. The girl before me perhaps needed just a little courage. She might lack it, but I could lend her mine. As I held her arm, I transferred a flicker of feline strength to her, calming her restless heart. Her rapid breathing gradually slowed. Hui Qianan grew impatient, attempting to come over to drag her away, only to be blocked by the bodyguards. Su Li, I want to break up with you.
what did you say?
Su Li, say that again.
I said,
I want to break up with you. If it weren't for you seducing me after returning home, would I have ended up in this situation? Now you want to discuss breaking up? I refuse.
Su Li smiled.
When I first returned, it was just the right time for a collaborative project. We had dinner a few times, reminiscing as old friends. You were the one who said you were single, right? Your friends were all saying how they waited for me for years. Now to say I seduced you? That's truly despicable. What was meant to be a preliminary partnership banquet had now become a sensational topic due to Hui Qianan's personal scandal.
He,
Once a favored son of heaven, could hardly bear the multitude of fingers pointed at him. Quickly, assist Mr. Hua out. When he sobers up, remember to inform him of the good news that he has returned to being a single nobleman. The man in the white suit delivered the cutting remark with precision. I could sense Su Li immediately deflating, murmuring, was I wrong? I quickly reached out to gently comfort her shoulder. You were not wrong. Going abroad to study was not a mistake. Opportunities for girls are scarce, and one shouldn't give up themselves for others. Upon returning, you just happened to meet someone everyone claimed had waited for you for years. It's only natural to be moved. Discovering his true colors before marriage is indeed a blessing. Su Li's eyes glistened with unshed tears.
thank you.
No need to thank me. It's the truth. Furthermore, he's a terrible person, a scoundrel who betrays girls and will never earn a dime. By the way, if he comes back later begging for forgiveness or appealing to your feelings, do not relent. If you ignore him for more than a minute, he will immediately reveal his true, repugnant self.
Su Li smiled faintly.
Yet soon, she began to sneeze uncontrollably. Unable to say anything further, I hastily distanced myself from her and pulled Cheng Li away as well. Su Li is allergic to cat hair. I'm afraid it's a bother to you. I looked at the man in the white suit, asking him to check on her condition. Cheng Li's suit was likely speckled with cat hair, making it inconvenient for him to approach. Well, is Miss Su allergic to mouse hair?
Huh.
The man in the white suit spoke nonsensically. No, it's fine. Su Li waved her hand. After keeping her distance, she seemed a bit better. Thank you, I understand.
Su Li smiled slightly.
The world truly cannot do without its cats. Soon, Su Li's business partner arrived at the scene to take her away. The man in the white suit stepped forward, smiling slightly. I haven't formally introduced myself. My surname is Qin, with a single character in. Hello, Cat Ning. I greeted him warmly, but why do you smell like a mouse? He paused for a moment, then chuckled because I have a little mouse at home. I suddenly realized. A mouse sage, able to foresee the future and understand divination. No wonder Cheng Li knows about my affairs. But to let a mouse divine for a cat is a bit too much. was stocks experienced drastic fluctuations due to Huiqianen's actions. He began to shed his lofty demeanor, stepping away from the persona of longing for his moonlight, adopting the character of a young master driven mad in search of a cat. Unfortunately, he could no longer disturb me, for we had moved, and Huiqianen had no way to win me back, using the cat to constrain Chengli. Life was not treating him kindly. It was said he had but one final purpose left, to contribute his body to the family, engage in a business marriage, and produce offspring. Hearing about his fate, I could only click my tongue. I continued to nibble on salmon while scrolling through my phone to read a novel. Just as I was engrossed, my phone was snatched away. What are you doing? I was just getting to the exciting part. The cat's eyes widened, resembling glass beads filled with grievance. Chengli cast a glance at the content on his phone and, to my dismay, began to read it aloud. He wept bitterly, filled with regret for the past, all in a bid to win me back to his side? How utterly embarrassing. The cat couldn't help but lower its head, awkwardly scratching the ground with its paw. Yet, Chengli continued unabated. Stop, stop, stop. Viewing is one thing, reading aloud is entirely another. Seizing the opportunity, I leaped into his embrace, transforming back into human form to reclaim the phone, hastily pressing the screen off. However, Cheng-Li's lips lingered by my ear. His tone tinged with jealousy as he inquired, "You haven't been harboring thoughts of Huiqian after indulging in so many tales of desperate love pursuits, have you?" The mere thought of Huiqian reciting such lines as in the novel sent a shiver down my spine. How dreadful. I turned to plant a kiss on Cheng-Li's cheek, declaring, "I have no thoughts of him. The cat already possesses the world's finest devotee." Cheng-Li's lips curled slightly upward, yet it was evident he was suppressing his emotions. However, a devotee with neither name nor status feels a tad disheartened.
How could that be?
I rose on my toes to whisper in his ear, using a soft, sweet voice. "You dwell in the cat's heart." Cheng-Li's apple bobbed, his hand tightening around my waist, leaving my legs somewhat weak. After transforming into a human, the cat could adeptly manage its heat. Only when feeling safe, free, joyful, and cherished did it truly feel anything. During the 3 years at Huiqian's home, such sensations never emerged. Each time he attempted to make a move, he was met solely with a flurry of feline punches. Following my words, Cheng-Li promptly took me to the Civil Affairs Bureau to obtain our marriage certificate. In a daze, I found myself holding the newly acquired red booklet and identification card. Realizing belatedly, I asked him, "Did you have ulterior motives when you previously took me to get my ID?" Oh, dear. The little cat had fallen into the snare of humanity. Cheng-Li merely planted a kiss on the corner of my mouth, grinning as if it cost him nothing. "Come now, we can return to raise little kittens." The end. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please remember to like and subscribe. Until we meet again in the next story.